Hey YouTube, so this is a studying tips video, and I'm glad that my videos are helping some of you. Anything to help a fellow student is great. So I wanted to talk about my planner first because I got a few questions. So mine looks like this, and I didn't show you guys at first because I didn't have a clip. I didn't have it completely ready. So usually I'll clip the month that I'm working on and have this rubber band on the week, just so that I could flip through it faster. And I got mine at Walgreens for $3 when they have their back to school supplies and stuff. I don't know how much they are full price. I know they had this, an orange, and a pink one, and the other ones were weird, so I got blue. And then this is what my sister's looks like. They're maybe about the same size. I think mine might be a little smaller. And hers I got at Target, and I think it was about $8. And hers again has that week view, and hers actually has these little tabs for the month, which I like a lot better. But mine was $3, so I'm not going to complain. So the first tip that I wanted to give you guys is to separate your study environment from everything else. And what I mean by that is that I know that there's some people that study and watch TV in bed, and I would really advise against that. If you study and you watch TV in bed, you probably have a hard time sleeping, and that's not going to be good. And it's the same thing. If you're going to only study in one place, and you develop that habit, that means that when you sit down to study, your brain's going to be alert and ready, and it's going to absorb as much as it can because it knows you're going to study. So your brain develops these habits to help you out, so just try to work around it. I know that on the flip side, I don't watch TV in bed, and I rarely ever study in bed. So whenever I go to lay down during the day, like if I lay down on my bed for a little bit, I'll start dozing off right away, even if I'm not tired. And that's because I lay down only when I'm going to sleep. So the next tip that I would give you would be to, once you sit down to study, to have everything you need with you. Have a water, snack, your laptop, a dictionary, thesaurus, whatever you're going to need. Make sure you have everything with you, because if you have to study, you're not going to want to, so you'll find any excuse to get up and just walk back and forth, and that's just going to waste time, so you don't want to do that. And also, a little bit of self-control never hurt anybody. And my next tip would be to schedule ahead of time. Make sure that if you have a test coming up and you say, okay, I'm going to study for 2 days, that you have all your prep work done ahead of time. And what I mean by that is that if you're going to do note cards or fill out a study guide, that's done before you study. You sit down to study, because that's not studying. You're just putting everything together, organizing your notes. That doesn't count. Sometimes you might think, oh, well, I studied for 2 whole days and I did poorly on a test. You were probably doing prep work, and prep work isn't going to put as much information in your head, and you're not going to hold it as much. So just make sure that you schedule ahead of time and that you're aware of perhaps how long something's going to take. Also, that would go in with your planner. Schedule it in, prep work, you're going to start working on things right away, and then these 2 days you're going to study, and have some self-control. I know I could have gone and watched a movie today, but I said no. I stayed home, and I'm just taking a break from studying right now. Then my next study tip would be to get a good night's sleep, and that's where your environment separation kind of comes in. If you want to sleep early at night before a test, and you're used to studying and you've been studying for a whole week straight, when you lay down to sleep, you're not going to fall asleep right away, or you might not get a good night's sleep because your brain has been used to studying for 2 whole weeks straight. So just make sure that you get a good night's sleep, and that you really try to. I know some people like to cram, but you know, it's been proven and shown that if you don't get a good night's sleep and you're suffering of sleep deprivation, your cognitive senses and your cognitive parts of your brain aren't going to work right. And that's what you're going to be using when you take a test. So just make sure that you get a good night's sleep. And then the next thing would be to have some breakfast. Have a fruit bar. Have something. You don't want your brain to be worrying about have stayed up all night, not eaten anything, and not concentrate on your test and what you're doing. So just make sure that you get a good night's sleep, have some breakfast, separate your study environment, and schedule in enough time to study. Then my other one would be to study in a group, or to do your prep work in a group anyway. sometimes you won't have all the notes for something, or sometimes someone might have had a separate fact or be able to explain it to you better. So you might want to get together with a couple classmates, you know, switch a few emails, try to get everything together. Sometimes you might think something is important and sometimes it might not be. You might be able to get something out of it. So I always find that useful. I know not everybody's reliable, but just see, it's going to help you out just a little bit. You might get something out of it, or you might help somebody else. So anyway, those are my generic tips on how to study. My personal tips, I swear by index cards. And they look like this. Note cards, index cards, whatever you want to call them. These are actually my biology ones, and I put them on a ring and I hole punch them because my tests for this semester are going to be comprehensive. So that means that I'm going to be tested on anything that we learned so far at the end. So I'm sure a lot of you guys know how they work, but I'm just going to run through it real quick. So I'll have the term in the front, and then I'll have the definition in the back. And because biology definitions can be a little bit complicated, especially if you haven't been in a bio or a science class in a while, it's going to sound like gibberish to you at first. I actually have examples that go with it. So I'll have the definition on top, and then I'll show what it looks like. Some visual learners, this is going to help you. Like, I can read the definition, and this is for a polar covalent bond. Bond created when electrons share unequally because they differ significantly in electronegativity, a symmetrical electron cloud. And that all just means that it'll look something like that. So like I said, sometimes drawing yourself a little diagram, a little picture is going to help you out in remembering things. And you want to be able to recognize them right away, not just know the definition. So note cards are going to work if you're learning terms for a history class, for a sociology class, if memorizing of terms is going to help you out on your test, then note cards are going to be the best thing for you. But their drawback, again, is the fact that they're small. It's a 3x5. So if you have a lot of things for one term, either they're too long and you should use something else, or you're not focusing on the main parts and you need to really break it down for yourself. So the other way that I study is that I fill out a study guide. Always, always, always fill out a study guide. Always. If you get a study guide, use it. That means that that's going to be on the test. Teachers will rarely try to confuse you. They want you to do well as well. So fill out a study guide if you get one. And if you don't get one, then try to phrase questions for yourself. I know some people can memorize terms very well, but when you see it on a question, it throws you off. So one would be like, what are the classifications of life? So I would list them. That would be their definition, and then how they're used. So it's been proven also as well that if you can explain it to someone, you're probably learning it a lot better. So that'll help you retain a lot of information. But another side tip that I wanted to do about note cards and terms is that usually if you're doing maybe a sociology or a history term, 3 facts on that term is going to be the minimum that you're going to need. So if you're doing a time test, you don't want to list everything about that term because you're going to run out of time, but you want to pick the top 3 most important. I have a little example. I hope it helps. So one of my terms for my history class was mott. So I wrote down what mott was, how a pharaoh used it, and then how it was also used. It was the name of a goddess, and then why it affected their society, why it was important. So when you do a term, you always want to write down the why it was important, especially in a history class or in a sociology class, why it's used. The why is going to get you those full points. If you know the term, that's great, but if you don't know why, then why are you learning it also? So just make sure you always remember the why. And if you're going to do it like that, then you want to list the 3 facts and the why. Memorize the why as well. You don't want to get there and have studied all night, know the term, but then not be able to connect as to why that's important. So then my other thing would be that for a math class or an English class, doing note cards and answering questions isn't really going to be very useful, because for math, the only thing that's going to help you is working problems out and just practicing. And for history and for English, it's going to be the same. It's writing assignments and doing stuff like that that's really going to be useful to you in analyzing your work. So, like I said, study tips are a little tricky. I know that that's how I study. I just schedule enough time. I fill out everything. I have all my prep work done, and I do note cards and fill out study guides. So I hope this helps some of you. If you have any questions, just let me know, and I'll be glad to answer. Thanks.